My name's David Nicholls. I'm an author and screenwriter. I've written 4 novels. The most recent is Us. The one before is called One Day, and the other 2 are The Understudy and Starter for 10. Well, this is my, I think, only my second time, and that is brilliant. Yes, I don't have a big sort of social circle of authors, but that's the only time I get to actually meet them. There's a kind of party atmosphere, I suppose, and I suppose the business side of that is meeting people, meeting the names that you only really see on the emails. You're meeting publishers with different outlooks, foreign publishers with different markets. So I suppose it's that meeting place element. I mean, it's a chance for people to share the sort of publishing success stories amongst each other. I mean, I'm a screenwriter too, so if I feel like it would benefit from being on screen, then I'll tend to write it for screen. Books, you can do lots of things. You don't need to worry about budget. You don't need to worry about running time or casting. You don't need to worry so much about genre. You don't need to worry about action and story in quite the same way. You're allowed to be thoughtful and ruminative and all of those things. So your toolbox is very different as a novelist. You have a lot more to play with. As a writer, I don't think about it. I mean, I don't think it's something you should have in the back of your head necessarily. But it's true, I mean, certainly I know as a screenwriter that it's very appealing for a film studio to leap onto something that's been proven to work in another medium. But the mediums are so different. You know, some books just don't translate. Some books just, there's something about them that's unadaptable. So it isn't an instant guarantee of success. But I can see how these ready-made stories are appealing to film and TV. You know, it's been such a long time. The publishing world has changed so much since I started. Of course, there are these stories of these huge auctions for first novels, and those stories are always very exciting and appealing and great for those authors. But that's a very tiny minority of first-time writers who have, you know, a pretty rough time of it to get noticed. So those big news stories are great, but I suppose it's harder for first-time writers who don't have that kind of profile to make a mark. And I think also harder for those authors who do make a big splash with big advances, whatever, to keep going. I mean, that's the hard thing, to keep going over 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or more books. I would think probably only show your best work. That would be my advice, because don't send it in with the anticipation of getting notes. You should just send stuff that you feel is finished and as good as it can be. Being on Richard and Judy was a massive break, huge break, really. I mean, none of us had any idea that it would take off in that way. And it was such a smart list, that first list. It was so eclectic and wide-ranging, and popular and literary fiction and non-fiction. It was a very, very clever list, and being on that list was my big break, really. It's been kind of, you know, a rough 5 or 6 years, I think. Since I published my last book, there's been a kind of general level of sort of fear and anxiety, and a lot of really good businesses have gone down. A lot of authors, very fine authors, have found it harder to make a living. And I suppose you always hope that that's coming to an end. So I'd hope for a kind of cautious optimism.